Good morning, good day to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really think today is going to be a really good presentation, great presentation. I'm joined by colleagues from ProWest and Associates, and it's one of Esri's Gold Business Partners. And if you don't know ProWest, they're amazing specialists with ArcGIS Parcel Fabric and ArcGIS Hub. And Brent already introduced me. My name is Lauren Belker. I'm a solution engineer on the local governments and land records team. I'm out of Esri, St. Louis. And joining us today from ProWest are Brandon Turtlett, Kyle Wickstrom and Alex Lang. And before we get started, I just want to briefly set the stage for kind of what we're going to see today. And if you caught our last meetup a few weeks ago, you'll remember that I showed you the basics of ArcGIS Hub and the Equitable Property Value Hub initiative. We looked at the site template, we looked at the apps that ship with the solution, and even how to get started with the new Solutions app in ArcGIS Online, which is the new and improved way to deploy ArcGIS solutions to your organization. And if you want the full scope on that last meetup, we certainly invite you to go check out that video. It's posted on the meetup group page, and I'll also post it here in the chat in a couple moments on this meetup too. But today we're going to look at, really the next chapter in this book. And Brandon and Kyle are going to take you on a more in-depth base on working with the hub and the EPV initiative, travel from your expectations and even maybe a couple challenges that you might face along the way. So with that, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks so much for that great intro, Lauren. And as you heard, my name is Brandon Tortlett. I'm with ProWest and Associates. Even though I have my name on the screen here, I'm really not the main presenter for today. I'm just going to kind of set the table and kind of get us thinking about what we're really here to talk about. And then I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Kyle Wickstrom. And he and Alex are going to kind of take us through the meat of the presentation, but really do want to thank the group here for inviting us and the opportunity to present here today with this great meetup. It really is a great group, and I believe it's true to say that some of you are a brand new attendee for the first time today to the meetup, and that's fantastic. We're glad you're here, and we hope that you'll consider coming back for other presentations and bring some friends next time. I know Brent and Oscar and Lauren and others put a lot of work into this group, and we're glad that they've asked us to contribute today. So I really wanted to emphasize what Lauren just said. This is sort of chapter 2, if you will, of the book. Chapter 1 is the recording that they'll put in the chat window and whatnot. So nonetheless, we want to respect the fact that some of you didn't see the recording from the last one. And so rather than have Kyle and Alex dive right into the details of it, I'm going to kind of set the table a little bit as far as the very short version of what was presented last time, and then we'll kind of be in a better position to pivot to what Kyle's going to present. So I'm going to advance my slide here. Before we get into any of that, though, in case any of you might be wondering who on earth is ProWest, probably many of you have heard of us, but some of you probably have not. So if you're wondering who we are, here's a tiny snapshot of us. So we're an Esri business partner, as you heard Lauren say. We are a GIS consulting firm. We're based in Minnesota, and we're exclusively GIS and have been for 33 years. Although we do work nationwide with all levels of government, from federal to local, as well as tribal and some private industry as well, still it's true to say that we're mainly known as a specialized Esri business partner with a laser focus on local government and land records. So to put that more tangibly, this means we work with assessors, auditors, recorders, planning and zoning and so on, and of course GIS staff around the country. So you and people like you, and this is all we do. Fun little fact, we were actually Esri's 12th business partner ever, and they have thousands of business partners nowadays, so we feel pretty good about that. But we'd be categorized as a services partner or an implementation partner, if that rings a bell for some. And we focus on long-term partnerships with our clients, and we really act as part of your team. So, with that out of the way, so we're going to talk about the equitable property value, and we're really going to do a deep dive on it, as you saw with the title. But just to lay a little framework or groundwork, if you will. So what this is at a high level, again, for those that have never heard of this before, it is a configuration of ArcGIS Hub. For any of you that are brand new to Hub itself and have not heard of it either, we can send you, and Lauren and Brent can send you some resources to kind of get going on a basic level of what that is, but it's a highly configurable engagement platform. And we're going to talk more about this particular example, an implementation of ArcGIS Hub today. So it is a configuration of ArcGIS Hub. And it enables you to rethink the way that you connect and communicate with the public and other government entities. And really the bottom line is that if you are in the assessor's office or if you work with them, with the EPV is what the short version of it, your ability to increase public trust and confidence in your office is available now, and it is ready to use now. So a bit more specific, what does this EPV thing that we're going to go through today, but just at a high level, what does it give you? What does it deliver? I'm going to do a very brief live demo in just a second, but just to kind of give the concept of it. So it gives you a significantly increased public awareness, improved public and government access to property information, always a good thing, improved public understanding of assessment and property tax processes. It delivers focused information products for taxpayers and real estate professionals and property owners. And it also it offers easy communication of upcoming events and notices to citizens. And lastly, it has a full process for responding to appeals, educating taxpayers, and whatnot. Okay, so this is really about good government, and giving people the ability to answer their own questions in kind of a self-service mode. And granted, they can always contact you if they haven't been able to answer their own question, but it certainly puts more tools in the hands of the folks, the public that you serve, and enables them to answer their own questions. So, as promised, I'm going to do a quick little walkthrough of the Polk County EPV Hub site, because that is the very site that that our main presenters today are going to kind of go through. And in fact, we do have Polk County staff on the call, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But for those that have never seen such a thing, so this is what an EPV Hub site looks like implemented at a real live county here in the U.S. And so you'll begin to notice right away that it's kind of a visually intuitive, engaging destination page. It's easy to understand. What is this? What is this going to give me? What do I get from this? And what do where do I need to look for various information? Okay. And so right at the top here, it gives you kind of some key performance indicators or data points, all centered around the notion of property value in the county in question. So in this case, Polk County, Minnesota. So total parcels valued, how many are commercial, vacant, assessed value, and so forth. So put numbers behind it. And notice that for those of you that are familiar with other Esri solutions, you're probably expecting to see, where's a map? Isn't there a web map in here somewhere? I'm just seeing data, I'm just seeing information, I'm seeing pictures. There's lots of them in here, and Kyle's going to go through those, but you don't even see one yet because it's an information page first and foremost, and you choose what kinds of web mapping applications you want to step into. So since we are looking at property value, here's the ability to understand more. How do we value property information? And so there's links to descriptive documents, in this case from the Minnesota Department of Revenue, about understanding property taxes, how the assessor estimates your market value, and so forth. Buying a new home or property, so there's a Homestead Tax Calculator. Okay, put in some information and get at least an estimated market value, estimated tax, self-service, and good governance. You keep going down the page, and now you begin to see links for the first time, kind of in the middle of the page, to web mapping applications that are all geared around property, okay? So I might want to look at tax distribution, or maybe to start with the basics. Let's just say I want to look at tax parcels, okay? So there is a tax parcel viewer, and so when you launch into this thing, you'll notice it pops out a separate window tab here, a browser tab, and it launches that thing. And it still has the same look and feel, and Kyle's going to kind of go through the customization that can be done here. But just at high level, splash screen tells you what it is. Okay, there's a click through. And then if I were to search for a property by address, or maybe just zoom in, whatever your preference is. If I click on a parcel, I'm going to be presented with an array of information like you'd kind of expect from a tax parcel viewer, as far as taxpayer information, who owns it, legal description, give me the list of recorded documents that the county recorder has for this parcel, and so on. So a litany of different information, all centered around the property itself. So there's tax parcel viewer. I'm not going to click on all these because this is not, I'm just trying to present, of course, at a high level and a very quick overview about this. Comparable sales, property sales search, tax sales, and Kyle's going to go through some of these. Tax distribution, so where are the property tax dollars being distributed, along with the amount of each distribution, and so on and so forth. So links to a litany of different web mapping applications. And then there's links to the data itself. So if you're some sort of a do-it-yourself shop or a research organization or somebody that just needs the raw data, you can get that here. Listing of community events, so maybe where a property workshop would be, or some sort of a tax sale, a property auction, or a deadline to get your appeal in, or things of that nature would be appearing here in the community events calendar. The ability to get involved, and Kyle's going to kind of flesh this out. You have a question about your property value, and so here's a contact to the county assessor at Polk County. Also the ability to start an appeal process, and Kyle will go through these as well. So it's very easy to kind of have a sense of what's here and what would I want to step into and what would I find when I click on it. And then at the very bottom of the page, after you've given the citizens every opportunity to potentially answer their own question, then they can also contact the county assessor's office and go about it that way. So just at a high level, very quick guided tour, this is what an EPV site looks like, having been implemented at a county. And so as I pass things over to Kyle, what he's going to do is then go deeper, because that's essentially that's what Lauren went through in the last webinar, like she said, and you can watch the recording. What Kyle's going to do today is go under the hood as far as what does it take to put something like this into place? What are some considerations, potential hurdles, things that we notice when we put it into place that you might want to know in case you're thinking about something like this in your jurisdiction. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Kyle, and you can share your screen.
Yeah, while you're transferring, Brandon, I don't think I mentioned that if you guys have questions, paste them in the questions window, and we'll work on answering those. And the links that Brandon talked about are posted in the chat window.
Yep, thanks, Brent.
All right, thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Brent. Is my screen coming through?
Yes.
Perfect, thanks.
Yep, looks good.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyle Wickstrom, a solutions architect at ProWest in Minnesota. So what I'm going to talk about today is some of the experiences that we had working with Polk County deploying the equitable property value, and some of the decisions that had to be made along the way in order to support the various types of content that's being shared throughout that specific page. So we're going to talk, maybe we're going to make some assumptions about what deploying an EPV looks like. Like for example, one of the assumptions we're going to make is let's say that you have your tax parcels all ready to go, but now we got to get some other things in place. We're going to talk about stuff like that. There we go. So really what we're going to talk about here, the high level overview, is what sort of things to expect once you deploy the EPV within your ArcGIS online account, some of the decisions that you may have to make, how to navigate some of those challenges that you may experience when you're making some of those decisions, and then some different ways that you can own your own EPV to make it your own, to put your own local government's stamp of approval on it. So some things with the equitable property value are some requirements. It requires ArcGIS Online, and you're going to need ArcGIS Hub Basic at a minimum, and that comes with your ArcGIS Online account. Now, if you do have access to Hub Premium, it does enable you access to some add-on capabilities, and in some cases they're more than just add-on, they're essential, such as the calendar capability or the ability to invite community users to participate and engage with some of the initiatives that you may have, and to engage in two-way communication. You're also going to need Survey 123 to configure that tax calculator that we saw in Brandon's demonstration. We're going to talk a little bit more about how we used Survey 123 to include some of the algorithms that Polk County is using to calculate its estimated tax. So what to expect when you deploy the Equitable Property Value Hub? So all of the content that makes up the EPV is going to get set up inside your ArcGIS Online organization. That's going to include the hub site itself, that landing page, and that set of configurations. It's also going to set up the maps, the apps, and those hosted feature layers within your ArcGIS Online organization. So now, many organizations may have on-premise GIS infrastructure or ArcGIS Enterprise where you have tax parcels coming from your live geodatabase systems and other types of data and coming from those enterprise sources. So when you deploy the EPV, if you're wanting to take advantage of getting your own data into those hosted feature layers which appear in the maps and the apps, you have a couple of different options. So one of those options can be you can set up processes or work with a partner who can set up these automated processes that will populate those hosted feature layers with your own data. Another option that you can do is you can work with a partner or do it yourself. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, you can get into these maps and apps and reconfigure them in ways to consume your own data sources, to consume those tax parcels and things that may be coming from your enterprise GIS. So there's a couple different things to know when you deploy the EPV Hub, and one of those things is going to be, where is the data coming from? So those are some considerations. So what do you get when you deploy the EPV Hub? So you do get some of these maps and different applications, one being the floodplain inquiry application where you can search for your tax parcel and compare it to the floodplain boundaries to see if your property is in a floodplain. You get the residential comp finder, which helps users find where the comparable property sales have been. You can also get the tax parcel viewer, the property tax assessment appeal, which is a configuration of Survey 123 that enables property owners and taxpayers to essentially submit digitally a protest regarding their assessed value. We're going to talk about that one a little more in a bit, but it also includes that tax liability calculator that we're going to talk about as well. So some of the decisions that organizations may face, I know we worked with Polk County to help them make some of these decisions. One of these is the idea of off-the-shelf applications and additional enhancements that one may need to make in order to make the EPV Hub work for you. So if you're going to deploy something like the tax parcel viewer, does the out-of-the-box tax parcel viewer have everything that you need, and does it include everything that you're wanting to share? Or do you have more information that you want to share within that tax parcel viewer, having to decide what does our organization need the EPV Hub to do for us in order for it to be effective? We talked a little bit about the data sources and the management. So when it comes to the data, like I said earlier, we're going to make an assumption for our conversation today that you have things like your tax parcels, that very core layer in land records. We're going to make the assumption that you have that ready. And we're going to put more special focus on some of the other types of data that an organization may have to manage, such as information like the appeals or forfeitures and foreclosures and different things like that. Now, earlier when I was talking about you can use those hosted feature layers that get set up in your ArcGIS Online organization and populate your data into those layers, or you could configure the applications to pull your own data sources and your own data from your map services in Enterprise GIS. You can also do a hybrid approach where maybe some of the data is coming from your enterprise database, and perhaps some of the data actually resides in ArcGIS Online. You can store that data up there as well. Then they also have to make decisions such as, for some of this data that may be getting submitted by the public, such as the property tax assessment appeals, what are we going to do with that data once we receive it, and who's going to be responsible for managing that? So it's important to identify the stakeholders and the users of this data and anything that they may need to do in order to manage it. Maybe they need access to edit some of that data, or to triage things like the appeals, or the ability to create a foreclosures map. It's really important to identify who those users are who are using the data and responding to it. And then once you've done that, you can identify what are the workflows that they need to be able to carry out in order to manage some of that data or to use some of the maps and the apps that they have. You see down there, I did put the big picture question, and that is what is needed to make the equitable property value a complete end-to-end solution for your organization. And that, again, we talked about how do we manage some of the data and triage it when it's coming in. So that's what we're going to spend more of our time talking about here. So some simple steps to help out with navigating some of the challenges. It's really important to know the needs, and that ties directly back to the big picture question. What is it that the EPV needs to do for us? And what is it that we need the EPV to do for the internal staff as well? Making sure you know when it comes to updating your EPV or the applications, knowing what sort of updates or enhancements can be made that are out of the box. So making those simple, quick reconfigurations to the apps and the maps to make them your own. Configure first, and then if you need to extend the capabilities of ArcGIS, maybe with some custom applications or custom work, save that for later. Use the out-of-the-box capabilities as much as you can. Identify the gaps, so specifically identifying what are the things that we need that it is not fulfilling right out of the box. And we're going to talk about foreclosures and appeals. So we're going to talk about how we identified one of the needs that the staff had for responding to that data. And then outlining the steps that you're going to take to fill those gaps. What sort of technology are we going to use? Who are the players involved and the users? And then what is it that they actually need to be doing with the data? Do they need to edit it? Who has the permissions? Things like that. And then also be engaging with the users who are going to be using the EPV Hub and your internal maps and apps. Find out what their workflows are, engage with them, involve them in the process, because they're going to know what their workflows are the best, and they're going to know what these data products have to provide in the end. And understanding that story is going to help you to develop a better solution. And then ways of owning your EPV. So working with your communications professionals or maybe your public relations folks to set organization styles and branding, making that EPV look like an extension or an expansion of the current web presence that your organization may have. So that includes things like getting the colors right, using the stock photos that your organization has approved. That is really going to give the end users confidence that this page is something that your organization has authority over, and that it's not something that another organization or a third party is setting up for you and they have complete ownership. You can create a lot of confidence in your site by making people feel comfortable with it, and you make people feel comfortable with it by making sure that they know that it's something that you yourself are managing. Ensure that the solutions are complete end-to-end solutions. So making sure there's no dead ends when you're setting up that EPV. A dead end can be something like, hey, we set up the EPV, but our foreclosures data, we have no way of creating that. We don't have that. Well, if you're not going to generate that, then making sure that you modify your hub so that way it's not a dead end on your hub page. Nothing's nearly as worse as clicking on something on the web and it doesn't go anywhere, or there's no data provided. And then also providing complementary resources. Just because you set up the EPV and put in some of these maps and apps that it's describing or that we're talking about here, you're not limited to just those maps and apps. If you have other content that you've developed, such as maybe something like a corner document lookup where you can see corner monuments, or if you have maybe you use a map to look up the plat documents and things like that, you can add that content into your hub as well. And it doesn't even have to be GIS specific content. If you have a perhaps some legacy content that you're still using, you can add those as items into your hub and give users easy access to those. And I'm gonna point out a couple of those on the Polk County site as well. All right, so plug and play. So right here, what I've done is I've listed out what I was able to dig through and find the different data layers that if you actually have these data layers, you can plug those into the EPV and you're off to the races. However, a lot of organizations may not have this complete list, or they may be maybe it's incomplete. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a few of these specific items here. And we're going to talk about them in light of what the experiences have been working with Polk County. All right, so I'm actually going to jump ahead just a little bit here. All right, so at Polk County, things that were ready at Polk County when they deployed the EPV, they had their parcels and they had their tax data, and that was getting published nightly. So that was already available. We were able to readily set up things like the tax parcel viewer. There was things like the tax distribution data that took a little more working with that tax system to make that ready, but that was pretty simple and pretty painless. Address points, that was something that the county is already managing, so those were available. Floodplain boundaries already existed, and we had worked with the county in prior years. We had helped them to develop sales data, so that way they could readily include that in a map. And here what I've done is I've put some screenshots of where that different data is getting consumed within that hub page. So you see, for example, that parcel data gets used in the key performance indicators that describes how many parcels are there, what's the total value. With the property applications like the tax parcel viewer and the floodplain viewer, that data was ready. So we were able to get those applications up and running quickly. And then regarding the open data, we simply updated the configuration to be pulling in those specific data layers for the parcels and for the sales. So that part of the hub was complete. And then filling out information like who to contact if you have questions. That's generally pretty simple. We know department phone numbers, so that was pretty easy to put in there. But then some things that maybe weren't so ready when we helped Polk County deploy EPV. So we're going to talk about things like the tax liability calculator. I promised you that. And then we're going to look at a demo of foreclosures as well. So these were some things we had to work with some of their teams on at the county. So the tax liability calculator, again, it's a great application and it's a great place to start. But a lot of organizations have very complex formulas that involve numerous variables that are used to estimate some of those tax rates. So for Polk County, they have numerous complex formulas based on the type of property it is. Well, we worked with the team and it was decided that what Polk County would do would focus on what are the estimated tax rates if you're a residential property and you have homestead status or not, meaning there are people who are residing at that property. And then they also wanted to make it easier for the end user to get the estimated tax rates rather than having to go look those up. So what we had done using Survey123 Connect, we had updated the configuration of that tax liability calculator to include some of these other additional variables and include the ability to preset the tax rates for that property based on your tax district. And those variables are being used to help calculate that estimated tax. And so let's, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my screen here and I'm going to pull up the EPV for Polk. And we'll just take a quick look at that. So for their homestead tax calculator, the first question they answer is your property a homestead or not? So let's say, yes, it is. And then we choose our tax district. And this is being populated using a pull data function where based on the value that the user chooses from this drop-down list, the survey also has a list of the associated tax rates with each of these values, and those are the rates that get used in the calculation. So let's say that we live in the city of Crookston, which is the county seat, and the estimated market value of the property under consideration, let's say it's $400,000. You can see here that the estimated tax is getting calculated and placed into that last section of the calculator. But let's say, maybe it's not a homestead, it's non-homestead. If we click that, you can see that that value is getting updated. So what this really is it's just a reconfiguration, or extra configurations, I'm sorry, of the tax liability calculator to make sure that it works for you. Go back to my presentation here. So the next thing I want to talk about is property foreclosures. So at Polk County, this data has been traditionally stored in their tax system, and it hasn't necessarily been the most simplest to get that into the GIS database. But what the county staff, what we're working with them on, is the ability to actually manage how that information gets stored and tracked within the enterprise geodatabase, and then what data gets shared with the public when it comes time to share information about a property that has been forfeited, it's gone through foreclosure process, and now it's being promoted for sale at auction or over-the-counter sale to get that property back on the tax roll. So now in the Equitable Property Value Hub, you may have seen that there's an open data item where a user could click on that item and download the foreclosures data. Well, we worked with Polk County to create some internal maps and apps where they can actually manage this data themselves. So let's take a look at what we did on that EPV. So if we go down to their property applications, so using the foreclosures data that the team is going to be managing, we were able to create this tax sales map. And within the Esri solutions, there is a solution called tax reverted property that is it's a great help. It's a great place to start when you're looking at sharing some of this information. And this is just a configuration of Web App Builder where we're displaying the properties that are available for sale. You see right now, it looks like the county's been doing a good job getting these back on the tax roll. So there's only 2 sales available right now, but we get a listing of them here, and you can also explore them on the map and click on them to get more information. So let's say we're interested in this property and we want to get a little more information. We can actually click on this button. It's just a configured hyperlink that is redirecting to the county's public property search page, so that individual can get more information about that particular property if they're interested in purchasing that. So let's talk about the management of this data a little bit as well. So as I said, this data, it is not set up with an automated process to pull it from the tax system. Staff are actually managing that listing themselves. So what we have here, and actually what I'm going to do is, if we do have a couple of questions, we should take some of those, because it will take me just a moment to get logged into this system. Do we have any questions in there, Brent or Brandon?
No, none yet.
All right. Well, then it'll take me just one moment to get logged in here. I typed the password in wrong once, and you get kind of nervous when you're on the spot. So thanks for buying me some time. Is my screen coming through again?
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. So what's been set up for the internal staff is this tax reverted property map that staff members can use to actually manage the listing of those foreclosed properties. So there's actually more foreclosures throughout the county than are currently or presently being promoted or marketed. This application gives the staff users a purely GIS-centric solution to managing this specific data. So you can see this application, we can click on any one of these foreclosures or sales that exist throughout the county to get the information about them. We did include the link to that tax system to get more information, but notice there's a manage button. I'm not ready to jump in there yet, But let's walk through the workflow where we have a new property that has gone through a forfeiture, foreclosure, and we need to start tracking that data. So what you can do is you can find that property by searching the parcel ID or browsing the map. I'm going to go over here to East Grand Forks along the North Dakota border. Let's go in here and find a property. We'll just use it as a demo property. So what we can do is we can actually identify the property that maybe is going through this forfeiture process. We're going to click on that tax parcel and we're going to get its information. And then we're going to click on this create foreclosure button. And we worked with the team to develop some of the questions that they may have or that they want to track about a specific property. But what you see here is we do have a Survey 123 application that gets launched where we can actually enter in that new foreclosure information. You see some of the property information is getting passed through into the survey from that tax parcel. Saves the staff person a little extra time when trying to enter that data. If I were to expand the map, we can actually see specifically where that foreclosure point is going to get placed, and by default it's simply placing that right on the center of that parcel. So we can fill in the rest of this information if we want to. I'm just going to put the word test in here. The residential structure type, floor area, the year build, any information that you want to track and maybe share if you were to turn this foreclosure into a potential sale. And then the question, is this foreclosure posted to the sales map or not? So you can actually include a question in here that determines whether or not that foreclosure can be viewed on the public map. So they have complete control over what data the public can see. Oh, and I did forget to mention, they do have the ability to attach any sort of documents that they want the public to have access to if they were to click on that foreclosure as well. So I'm actually going to save this one. And then let's go back to our map here. Might have to refresh my map to see there's my point. So let's say it's time to edit this information. So right now that point can't be viewed by the public, but let's say we're ready to post it. I'm going to click on that sale. This is the pop-up for the parcel. I'm just going to drill to the next feature. There's my foreclosure. I'm going to click on the manage button. That's going to reopen that Survey 123 application, enabling you to continue to edit that particular feature. And if I were to change this posted from no to yes, that property would then be visible on that public sales map. But I'm not going to do that right now. Let's save that right there. So that is a way that a local government could use a purely ArcGIS solution to track and manage some of the data that you may want to use in your Equitable Property Value Hub. Another one I want to take a look at is the appeals information. So if we go back to Polk County's EPV page and we go down to start the appeals process, when you deploy the EPV, this is actually linking to the Survey 123 application that allows the user to fill out the appeals information. What we wanted to do with Polk County, because it makes things a little easier for the applicant, was to give the applicant the ability to select their property from a map, and then based on that property, pre-populate some of the questions that appear within that survey. So what we're going to do here is we could simply search for a property that we want to submit an appeal on. And it's really simple and straightforward. You simply find the property that you're wanting to protest the value for, click on it, and then you click this button to start the appeals process. And then this is simply bringing that applicant to the out-of-the-box tax assessment appeal application. It's placing that point for us right on the center of that parcel. You can pre-populate some of the questions. So right here, you can see that the parcel ID is getting pre-populated into that application. And then the applicant can fill in the rest of the questions here. So I'm going to just choose a couple options here and submit this one. Email, phone, the signature, things like that, and let's submit that. So that's submitted. Then what has to happen is staff need to be able to triage this information and to do something with it. So we had set up some additional applications within, whoops, for the internal staff members where they can actually receive and triage this information. And this is yet another out-of-the-box application template with ArcGIS. It's just a configuration of the Crowdsource Manager. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to refresh my listing here. And these are all sample points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these submitted appeals that has come in, and then that staff member has the ability to review that application and then track it. So we can see where it is, we can see what information they filled out, that it's owner occupied, they're living there, here's who submitted it. If they had an attachment like the signature, you can view those as well. But then that staff member has the ability to track where this appeal is throughout that process. So if this appeal it's been received, or it's in progress, or it's complete, we can track that here. And now we have a comprehensive listing of all of the appeals that have been submitted to the county. Mark the date received, comments, date resolved, is there any resolution? And then if you actually want any of this information to be visible to the public. I do want to mention too that when we say visible to the public, it's not necessarily that they have access to all of the data. You can actually restrict in your EPV open data section, you can restrict which columns may be available. So for example, if you want to share the number of appeals that have been submitted, but not the contact information, you can totally do that. And that's one of the considerations that needs to be made at your organization, is when you're sharing your data through your hub site, just exactly which data do you want to share, and is there anything that should maybe be scrubbed out? So those are a couple major considerations that I wanted to take a look at. I'm going to reopen my slides here. And I kind of skipped over a lot of my slides because we went straight into demo, but that's okay. So I did talk about how the Polk County's EPV is using some of their additional or their complementary applications, such as the traditional sales search. So that was added to their EPV as well, because they're not wanting to take that away from the end users, but they're wanting to bring all of the information into one common destination. So like I said earlier, if you do have additional content being used to support some of these workflows, you can add those in to your EPV. So when we're looking at the EPV, just be aware of where some of the loose ends maybe could pop up, whether that be things like the sales data, the foreclosures, or the appeals. Just making sure that you actually have that data and have a means to get that into your EPV hub if that's something you're wanting to share. But if you don't have that information readily available, there are ArcGIS applications that can help you to create and manage that data on top of what you get when you deploy the EPV hub. So it's really taking the EPV and expanding upon it to make it exactly what you need for your organization. And that's true for all hub sites that are set up for organizations. You can take those pages and expand upon the solutions that they include, and you can extend them to make sure that there are no loose ends, making sure you have data to populate. And actually, I see right now my next slide is my thank you slide, so I guess that's my cue that I'm done. But I guess maybe at this time, if there's any questions that have come through, we could take a look at those, or Brandon or Brent, if you have anything additional you want to share, we could dive into some of that.
Well, there aren't any questions yet. I think you did a pretty good job showing some of how you set some of those things up. I can't imagine there aren't a couple of questions though, because it's there's a fair amount of moving parts in there to put the whole thing together.
Well, and there are a couple common questions that we've gotten have included. Well, one of the questions has included, for our internal staff members, can we set these applications up on Enterprise or on the portal since that's set up? And the answer is yes, completely. You can set up these applications for internal use. You can set those up in your portal.
I just got messaged one directly related to what you just said, Kyle. Can you do this in just ArcGIS Online without having portal or Enterprise?
Yep, you could totally set up all of the content that we've seen here using solely ArcGIS Online. So you can set up hub sites that are private. You can also, with some of the latest updates to ArcGIS Hub, you can even configure sections of your hub page that are visible to only private users.
And what are the processes for getting data out of CAMA?
Ooh, that's a really good question, and one that I would have to pull one of our senior developers on. So, simply put, you need to have those tax downloads or those download capabilities available, and then have either a manual or an automated process that can grab that data and then join it to your tax parcels.
All right, good. Well, that's all the questions that came in to me. Brandon, you got any? Lauren?
I don't see any questions, but I know that this was a question that was asked last time. And Kyle, if you could just speak to it as well. Like, what if I had like a legacy application? Could I use that in the EPV Hub, or do I have to create all new apps in the solution to support these workflows?
If you have existing applications that you're wanting to continue to use, I would highly encourage simply adding those into your Equitable Property Value Hub, whether that is an ArcGIS application, or maybe it's not ArcGIS at all. Maybe it's a web page that you've put together to share certain types of information or data that you're really proud of. Simply make it available in your hub as well, bringing all of those resources together in one spot. And that's what Polk County did with their traditional property search application, where you can see the page, you type in the parcel ID, search for a name. It's more the tabular experience. So that content is included in the property applications part of Polk County's hub. So another question that we've gotten, and I'm actually going to, so I do have Alex Lang on the phone with us too. He's a solutions engineer here with us. So Alex has worked quite a bit with Survey 123, and one question has been, when the end user is using Survey 123 to submit information, can the map include some of our extra data layers so they know that they know what the property lines are, for example? Alex, can you share your experience with that?
Yeah, so there was definitely a need in a recent project I did, that we wanted to express some information on the map that was actually going to be used later in the survey. Now, the person might not actually, the end user might not actually know that information, but if we have a data layer that we could use to display that and give them more information to better fill out the rest of the survey, that would obviously be of great value. So we found that using in Survey 123 Connect, there is a piece in there called linked content, where you're able to use one of your built web maps as the base map for that map in your survey. So by being able to have this capability, we can add data layers such as the tax parcels into into those maps so that you can actually see that data on the map while you're filling out the survey, rather than having to switch between tabs and looking at, say, the tax parcel viewer and then porting over to the survey to fill in your information. We can actually put that right in the survey 123, and that's a very cool little feature of survey 123.
Yeah, related to that, there's the question just popped in. Does the tax calculator save the requests that are made to it? So can you log the questions that people ask?
Sure,
log the calculations.
Sure. So Survey 123, it does, if you were to open that Survey 123 application in its own browser tab, there would be a submit button at the bottom of that survey that's used to submit the information, presuming that it's going to be used for something. What's being done in the configuration of this hub is the survey is placed or embedded onto the hub site using the iframe widget or the iframe card. And you can actually specifically set the height of that iframe. And in this case, the height is set in a way that cuts off that submit button. If you wanted to display it though, you could increase the height of the space that calculator occupies and give the user the ability to submit their the information that they're entering in.
All right, cool. All right. Okay. Good. Oh, you got to thank you for that. Thanks, Lauren. Well, thanks to Kyle for the good answer on that. And if there aren't any more questions, I guess we're going to close it out. Brandon, do you have anything you want to say before we?
Kyle, I wonder if it would be worth just kind of briefly touching again on the Hub Premium versus Hub Basic licensure in terms of what its implications are for the functionality that's available. I think
Sure.
you touched on that earlier, but
Sure. So Polk County has Hub Premium, which gives them the ability to give members of the community access to community users, which in turn can be used to access private content on a hub page if there's private content you're wanting to share. Some local governments, they may have maps and apps that are designed to be used by a certain group of individuals, and Hub Premium would get you access to those users with whom you can share that private content. Premium is also going to enable the ability to configure events within your community events calendar and to communicate those events with those subscribers to your site as well.
yeah, so in terms of the first point that Kyle just made, that would typically be an assessor would identify their the real estate developers, the people that are in that come to the counter frequently, so to speak, people that need the information that the assessor's office offers. So that would enable you to put other types of content and information at the fingertips of those identified groups, those regular users of your information, that you would be able to give them access to other things that perhaps, that's one way you could do it anyway, other things that perhaps the general public doesn't have access to. So that's a nice little feature there.
Yeah, and for those that are small gov ELA holders, there's a special program for purchasing Hub Premium too as well. So.
And just to emphasize something I heard you say, Kyle, earlier that I think it's worth kind of rehashing in even a simpler form, what you identified in this exercise is that the EPV template is just that. So if not everything that you saw in this template is something you would want, or maybe not right away, or if there were other components, you had a different sales dashboard or another legacy system, and you look at this thinking, that's great, but could I also have this other thing in addition to what Kyle is showing me on his screen? And so I hope it was sufficiently clear when Kyle explained that yes, you can bolt on, you can add to this, perhaps subtract it. So it is a template, as a solution that you can deploy, and then you can kind of tweak it and add other things to it, because we certainly recognize that there's going to be unique things about your jurisdiction.
Perfect. Lauren, you got anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody. ProWest, Brandon, Kyle, and Polk County. Thanks for certainly your time and your experience of putting this together. If you have questions or there's something else you'd like to see in an upcoming meetup, feel free to, you can use the meetup communication tool, or you can drop Lauren or me an email, and we're happy to take those on. We have a couple meetups planned in January. So and again, they're all recorded. They're on the GeoNet site. So please frequent that. It's kind of a peer-to-peer site for going for resources and getting help and stuff like that. And with that, I think we'll call it a close. And thanks again, everybody.
Thanks so much.